headaches, were relaxed for the first time since he had come back to Iowa. When he was in the public spaces of the Reu, the lobby of the Ramada, the farmhouse, the football game in the side yard, he always felt that all eyes were on him. It was different here, where one had to attend to one's weapons, to make sure that the barrels were always pointed across the barbed wire. When Richard was seen, it was during terse one-on-one conversations spoken distinctly through ear protection. Younger relations, rookie in-laws, and shirt-tails called him Dick, a name that Richard had never used because of its association in his youth with Nixon. He would answer to Richard or to the nickname Dodge. During the long drive here from their homes in the exurbs of Chicago or Minneapolis or St. Louis, the parents would brief the kids on who was who, some of them even brandishing hard copies of the family tree and dossiers of photos. Richard was pretty sure that when they ventured out onto Richard's branch of the family tree, and a long, stark, forkless branch it was, they got a certain look in their eyes that the kids could read in the rearview mirror, a tone of voice that in this part of the country said more than words were ever allowed to. When Richard encountered them along the firing line, he could see as much in their faces. Some of them would not meet his eye at all. Others met it too boldly, as if to let him know that they were on to him. He accepted a broken 12-gauge side-by-side from a stout man in a camouflage hat, whom he recognized vaguely as the second husband of his second cousin Willa. Keeping his face and the barrel of the weapon toward the barbed wire fence, he let them stare at the back of his ski parka as he bit the mitten from his left hand and slid a pair of shells into the warm barrels. On the ground several yards out, just where the land dropped into the ravine, someone had set up a row of leftover Halloween pumpkins, most of which were already blasted to pie filling and fanned across the dead brown weeds. Richard snapped the gun together, raised it, packed its butt in snugly against his shoulder, got his body weight well forward, and drew the first trigger back. The gun stomped him, and the base of a pumpkin jumped up and thought about rolling away. He caught it with the second barrel. Then he broke the weapon, snatched out the hot shells, let them fall to the ground, and handed the shotgun to the owner with an appreciative nod. "You do much hunting up there at your schloss, Dick?" asked a man in his 20s, Willa's stepson. He said it loudly. It was hard to tell whether this was the orange foam plugs stuffed into his ears or sarcasm. Richard smiled. "None at all," he replied. "Pretty much everything in my Wikipedia entry is wrong." The young man's smile vanished. His eyes twitched, taking in Richard's $200 electronic hearing protectors, and then looked down, as if checking for cow pies. Though Richard's Wikipedia entry had been quiet lately, in the past it had been turbulent with edit wars between mysterious people, known only by their IP addresses, who seemed to want to emphasize aspects of his life that now struck him as, while technically true, completely beside the point. Fortunately, this had all happened after Dad had become too infirm to manipulate a mouse, but it didn't stop younger Forthrasts. Richard turned around and began to mosey back the way he had come. Shotguns were not really his favorite. They were relegated to the far end of the firing line. At the near end, beside a motorcade of hastily parked SUVs, 8- and 10-year-old children, enveloped in watchful grown-ups, maintained a peppery fusillade from bolt-action .22s. Directly in front of Richard was a party of 5 men in their late teens and early 20s, orbited by a couple of aspirant 15-year-olds. The center of attention was an assault rifle, a so-called black gun, military style, no wood, no camouflage, no pretense that it was made for hunting. The owner was Len, Richard's first cousin once removed, currently a grad student in entomology at the University of Minnesota. Len's red, wind-chapped hands were gripping an empty 30-round magazine. Richard, flinching every so often when a shotgun went off behind him, watched Len force 3 cartridges into the top of the magazine and then hand it to the young man who was currently in possession of the rifle. Then he stepped around behind the fellow and talked impatiently through the process of socketing the magazine, releasing the bolt carrier, and flipping off the safety. Richard swung wide behind them and found himself passing through a looser collection of older men, some relaxing in collapsible chairs of camo print fabric, others firing